Hello, and welcome once again to the Dawn of Chaos campaign. And this is the continent of Carpathia, a history and geography primer for those playing in the new Carpathian campaign world, Dawn of Chaos. And today I would like to talk about the Kingdom of Trillion and its capital of Trellwind right here. Now, at the beginning of the Second Age, Trellwind's borders reached all the way over to Tarask, down to Alukalu. They had colonies across the Narran Sea and hundreds of miles into the north and into the Northland. So it was a pretty vast, including Radek, it was a pretty vast empire encompassing this whole area here. Today, in the campaign world of 702-3A Third Age, Trellwind, pretty much the Kingdom of Trillion, is just this little area here along the coast, and it is a shadow of its former glory. Now, the Kingdom of Trillion is a feudal monarchy. That is the government system. Its ruler, it is mostly human, though there is some demi-humans there, but they're mostly human cities. And its ruler currently is King Angus Fitzgerald. The general religion in the country of Trillion is about 40% worship the god Paladine, about 40% worship the god Mishakael, about 5% worship the old gods, and about 5% worship other. Its code of laws is basically what you would expect to be lawful good. So, don't murder, don't steal, don't anything like that. It's a lawful good country. Its coat of arms is a single golden star surrounded by 4 white X's on a field of purple. The gold star represents the shining light of leadership of House Fitzgerald, and amongst the bones, the white X's representing the undead from the bone wastes. So now the Kingdom of Trillion is one of the oldest and long-standing kingdoms on Carpathia. Founded at the beginning of the First Age, Trillion's cultural influence has at one point or another reached as far to the ends of the continent and beyond. At its height, shortly before the War of the Stones, the political borders stretched as far west as Tarask, as far south as Alukalu, many hundreds of miles north, and even establishing colonies across the Narran Sea. One of Trillion's claims to fame is that the seat of power, the throne of Trellwind, right here, was blessed by Aemon Carpathians, who was the leader of the original human settlers on the continent during the First Age, and that Trillion is an extension of that first human kingdom. Its kings claim to rule by right of exploration, conquest, and divine rights favored by the gods. Throughout the years, many noble families have sat on the Trellwind throne, all having claiming birthrights back to the original human clans that explored with Aemon Carpathians. During the War of the Stones in the Second Age, King Edric Runesword of the noble house of Runesword had occupied the throne, and his ancestors had ruled for more than 400 years, expanding the borders, building great cities, and bringing the kingdom to its height of power. When Edric was slain by a drow assassin on the eve of the Battle of Tarask, the throne briefly went to his brother Godwyn Runesword, who was a player character at the time. though he was never crowned, and most historians do not consider him to have been truly a king, as Godwin was slain later that day at the climax of the battle. After the War of the Stones, Trilian was left without a king. Edric's children had died from the Yellow Plague at the start of the war, and Godwin, being a paladin and chaste, had no children. For the next 200 years, many noble families fought for and briefly ruled for a time, but the consistent fighting amongst the noble families with no stability in government, mixed with the increasing debt from the war and the rise from the undead armies of the Bone Wastes, plummeted Trilian into a downward spiral into which it has yet to recover. Trilian has lost many of its land and holdings, and it can no longer support many of its colonies and its vassal cities. During the year 254 3A, Third Age, stability finally came to the kingdom under the rule of House Fitzgerald. King Desmond Fitzgerald was able to make the strongest claim to the throne through clan birthright, as well as claim the throne through the conquest of defeating House Pershaw at the Battle of Lincolnshire, which is north of this map and not on this map. King Desmond was also able to beat back the legions of undead from the Bone Wastes and brought stability to the borders of Trilian by negotiating a peace treaty with Cole to allow them to self-govern, but they will honor Trilian laws and pay taxes. King Desmond also gained popularity among his people by freeing existence from all tax responsibility and servitude, claiming that they had suffered enough. House Fitzgerald's ancestors have sat on the Trilian throne ever since. They have had both good and bad leaders, as well as a rumor amongst their people that their family has been cursed some 150 years ago, due mostly to the Fitzgeralds' tendency to marry their cousins to secure their birthright, but have for the most part remained stable. Its current ruler, King Angus Fitzgerald, is awaiting the birth of his first child. He is popular amongst the people, but less popular amongst the nobles, and rumors persist that his younger brother, Ulysses Fitzgerald, plots to seize the throne. Now on to the city of Trellwind. It is a coastal city that has a harbor and brings in goods by trade and shipping and sea. Some of the more notable areas around the city is the Royal Palace is up on a hilly plateau that overlooks and dominates the rest of the city. This is where the king lives. Some nobles have houses in the surrounding areas, and this is sort of the royal area of the town of Trellwind. The town has three major churches. One is the Temple of Paladine here in the northwest corner. The other one is the Temple of Mishikael down here. And then the Church of the Old Gods is the oldest, one of the oldest buildings in the actual city, and that stands next to Market Square here. Fort Runesword is the primary military barracks and militia for the city guard of both the city of Trellwind and the country of Trilian. This is where most of the reserve troops are there available. However, because Trilian is in such debt, they cannot afford to keep a standing army. They can barely afford to keep their city guards and troops. And so that responsibility has fallen to the adventuring guilds, along which basically looks like Fraternity Row here, the adventuring guilds of Trellwind, of which there are three. The number one guild in Trellwind is called Kraken Wakes, and their guild hall is the closest to the royal palace. Their symbol is the kraken octopus. The second most popular guild, or the best guild in Trillion, is called Raven Feather. Their symbol is obviously a raven, and they are the second best adventuring guild in the city. The third best adventuring guild has yet to be named, which will be named by the player characters in the upcoming campaign, and this will be their guild hall here. Other areas of interest in Trailwind is the section of Old Town. This section of town claims to be the original settlement from when Aemon Carpathians brought over the first human settlements from across the sea. So that area holds historical significance. The Fitzgerald Park, with the statue of the current king Angus Fitzgerald, and the clock tower, which rings on the hour every hour. The last interesting point in Trailwind is the Trailwind Zoo, which, unlike a modern day zoo that would have like lions and tigers and bear, the Trailwind Zoo is particularly unique in that it holds all sorts of dangerous creatures like chimeras and griffins and dragons and all sorts of dangerous fantasy creatures, all held in pens which are magically sealed so that the creatures can't blow fire onto the onlookers. So it is a pride and joy for the city of Trailwind, and it's a major tourist attraction. So like I said, the city of Trailwind, it has 3 gates, the north gate, the south gate, and the west gate. And that is pretty much the city of Trailwind and a little bit of history about the country of Trillion. So once again, thank you for indulging me in my homebrew campaign, and thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy the campaign.